looking at a corn crop field. Cash crop was corn that we interseeded, aerial interseeding a 6-species mix in last fall. We want to get all different types of plants in there. We want to get legumes, we want to get broadleaves, we want to get grasses in there. And when they get growing together, there's some magic that happens underground. 5 of those species die off in the winter when it gets cold. So, but they're in the fall they're the better species and have more forage for my cattle to graze out here. So for the grazing person, it's more feed in the wintertime for some of those other species that you don't see here today. I believe this fall we grazed for 10 days from November 9th to November 18th with 60 animal units on 61 acres. Total with spring and fall grazing, I would get probably 20 days, plus or minus a few, 20 days of grazing. And we're back out here this spring looking at the rye, which is the only one of the 6 species that overwintered. And we're gonna figure out when we're going to graze this. When I come out here and I started at the water tank, and I divide this 60-acre field into strips, say 20-acre strips away from the water tank, and then within those strips I will daily ration out the feed in each one of those strips, and with the amount of animals, the 60 animal units I have here, and the amount of growth I have, we're talking about probably 4 or 5 days back grazing back to the water. So I'll just start at the water, move it out for 4 or 5 days, then I'll move to another strip and do the same thing, move to the 3rd strip, do the same thing, and then we're done and we'd move out. If I get over an inch of rain, we'll move the cows out so they don't create mud and compaction and pug it up. Another way you could do that is you could section off a corner of the field, maybe say 5 acres of it, to where you would put the cows, if you had a wet area and you couldn't move them off right next to yourself, a sacrifice area basically, to where you'd feed cows and you'd save the rest of the field, and then you'd just know you'd have to till that sacrifice area or fix it before you planted it. The exterior fence is a permanent fence. Most of it is a woven wire or barbed wire permanent fence. Interior fences are all temporary 1-wire electric fences. Very easy to move, just take a few minutes to move a fence and give them another section every day. I think you want to get enough growth out here, so that 6 to 8 inches, so you have enough feed out here to make it worthwhile to come out here. In this mix, you got the spring barleys and the mustards and some other plants in here that are cool season grasses and plants that grow a lot faster than what the rye does. So that growth comes on a little bit faster in the fall, and you never know when a freeze is going to come. So I think you get that 6 inches of growth, you go into graze, and then if you graze it once and you pull the cows off and it grows back, you can always come back again. But I think that 6 inches is kind of a magic number to start with. My grazing dates are a little bit dictated on when Rick wants to terminate this rye in this cover crop. So he's going to give me a date, and I'm going to come in and graze it off so many days before that, let it grow back a little bit so he can terminate and then go. So part of the conversation with Rick in starting this, putting cover crops in and grazing was what was his chemical program, because there's a lot of chemicals that you can't graze the rye after they've used for so many days. So in our instance, Rick has had to change some of the chemicals that he's used so that I can even be able to come out here and graze these cover crops.
So we do an early seeding. We fly this on with an airplane early fall so that we can get as much growth as possible, and then we can run cattle on it ideally we run them on in October, but most years we end up in November into December because there's just not enough top growth. I want it to be a thicker stand than this when I turn the cows out, because I want to make sure we have enough feed for everybody and I don't have to supplement much. We do give free choice hay when we turn the cows out, but they usually don't mess with it until they've cleaned the stubble up and they've mowed the rye off pretty good. We grazed it last fall for about a month and then pulled the cows off when the ground froze, and we'll be putting the cows on, if the growth lasts like it is right now, if we keep getting greener, we'll probably put them on the end of this week. And we'll be calving on this. So it's like calving on pasture, except this is gonna be corn. In the past, we've taken this field and split it up into different sections. It's extra work to put all that wire up and run posts. But if you do it right, the cows get used to moving, you can really improve your herd health because you're calving in new ground every week or so, depending on how you set up your paddocks and your herd size and all of that. We'll have cows on this at the end of this week, and I'll probably calve on it for the next month or so. If I was gonna manage it strictly as a grass, I'd probably only have them on here for about 2 weeks, depending on how I split the field up. If I put it into decent paddocks, I could probably get 2.5 weeks of grazing with the entire herd. But because I'm going to use this primarily for calving, and I want to have them out here and comfortable, I'll probably have them here for almost a month, and then I'll pull the cows off, let it regrow, and then we'll terminate before planting.
Top 3 benefits I'm getting. One is extended grazing in the fall. So I run out of my pastures, or if I just come over here when it's 6 inches tall and graze, I've got a very high quality feed, and for 10 days. It's 10 more days, and you can convert that out to hay and whatever. But the second reason would be spring that I'm thinking about. So I could come over here in the spring for 10 days, which would give my pastures another 10 days to grow before I would go on my perennial pastures. So the third benefit would be it's always going to be cheaper to graze a cow than it is to feed a cow hay. So anytime you can put them out on forage and they're feeding themselves, it's cheaper than hauling feed to them.